Yeah. So, Marco, I've been waiting for this interview come dialogue session for quite a number of months. So it's nice the day has come. So would you please introduce yourself and introduce Genesis Mining also?
Yes, with pleasure. My name is Marco Krohn. I studied theoretical physics. I have a PhD in theoretical physics, then worked a little bit in the banking industry and discovered Bitcoin at some point in time. And as soon as I discovered Bitcoin, I was completely sold to the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency world. And in addition to that, at some point in time, I met two very nice guys, Jakov and Marco Streng. So we founded together. We discovered that GPU mining script in the days was very profitable. So we started mining them, and then we had people coming to us and they asked us what we are doing with all these GPUs. And we told them, yeah, we are printing money. And they said like, wow, this is crazy, wanted to participate. And this is kind of how Genesis Mining actually started. Yeah. So there was a market for people that want to invest into mining. And we made that a complete business. Genesis Mining is all about selling hardware capacity to clients so they can mine Bitcoins or Ethereum or whatever coin they like and prefer.
Okay, so when did you actually start? In which particular year?
I think that was back in, it's a bit hard to say because there was kind of a smooth transition from the initial mining farm. I think we started in 2012 and selling or end of 2012. So we started with the preparations. And in, I think, end of 2013, we started kind of with a website and selling mining contracts via a website.
So it means, as far as mining is concerned, you are a veteran.
Yes, we were very early in this game. Yes.
Yeah, and do you think, Marco, at present the kind of serious debates, discussions, and hot topics around mining, that is user activated soft fork, BIP 148, SegWit 2, SegWit 2x, and all those things are going on. You must have seen a lot in this industry for last 5 years. With that experience, what kind of suggestion that you would like to give us that this is to happen and this is the way it should happen?
My personal opinion is that the miners should be, I mean, of course they are important participant in this whole ecosystem, and mainly what you mentioned, SegWit 2x, SegWit, user-activated soft fork. Then there have been all these other things like Bitcoin Classic and whatever their name was in the past. My opinion is actually the miners are not that important. At the end of the day, miners decide which transactions go into a block, and they decide about the time ordering of the blocks. But other than that, they shouldn't have much influence on the ecosystem. In a perfect world, the decision should be made by the community, by the users of Bitcoin, and not by miners. Unfortunately, the activation mechanism, so to ensure that there is no disruption in the Bitcoin network, there is no problems. That's why it kind of is put on the shoulders of miners to make this decision. But actually, in the perfect world, the node owners and the community should do the decision.
Okay. So, at present, as far as mining is concerned, do you find equivalent problems in other coins like Ether, Dash, and all those things?
I think Bitcoin is a little bit special here, unfortunately, in the sense that there are kind of two camps that have both the idea to scale Bitcoin, but the way they would like to scale it is completely different. And unfortunately, over time, this whole issue became much more than a technical debate. It became a political and sometimes even a very personal debate, which is problematic because sometimes people now will not even accept the suggestion, even if it makes sense from the other side, from the other camp, just because it comes from the other camp. and this is not good for Bitcoin. We have let's say similar requests, or we have requests to miners to behave in a certain way. For example, in Ethereum, recently there is these. Let's say there is two parameters in Ethereum which are important. The one thing is the gas price, and miners have been asked, because of the rising Ethereum Ether price, to reduce the gas price, which most miners, I think, agree to. The other thing, which is now an ongoing discussion, is the gas limit. The gas limit is in some way comparable to kind of the block size limit. So in Bitcoin we have a fixed limit of the block size, but in Ethereum this can be agreed on by mining participants. They can agree on increasing or decreasing the gas limit. And there's been a request by Ethereum developers, because there's now much more going on in the Ethereum network, to increase this gas limit. And miners are sometimes very slow in doing that. I wouldn't say, and this is also a general point, because you sometimes read these comments, miners will earn more money if they keep the block size small or if they keep the gas limit low. I think this is not true. In my experience, almost all miners are also heavily invested into the cryptocurrencies. So they hold a lot of these coins, and it's in their great interest that the coin itself is doing well, because they can earn money by just keeping these coins, and it will by far outweigh, or it will be by far more important for miners that the coin is doing well and appreciates in value than earning a little more via transaction fees.
So anything special about Dash mining or Zcash mining?
No, it's very smooth, I would say. Zcash mining and Dash mining, there is no political component. Dash is special in a way because it has this masternode network, which I personally think is a very, very clever idea. Because let's face it, the true power in, for example, in Bitcoin or in all these cryptocurrencies is not so much the miners. As I said, the miners have a very limited choice of what they can do. But actually it's a node network. So the people that relay transactions, that relay blocks, and they at the end of the day will decide what rules everyone has to play with. So they will enforce actually the rules of Bitcoin or whatever. And unfortunately there is the incentive, there is practically no economic incentive to run a node. So nodes are important, but they don't earn any money. And Dash is a little bit different, and I think this is a very smart concept. They have these master nodes, and the master nodes are, let's say, nodes which are with a certain stack of Dash, namely 1000 Dash. And if you set a master node and you're kind of a full node, you will get economic reward for that. So like mining. So both layers, the miners as well as the nodes, profit from transactions and get a reward for that. So I think this is conceptually wise, this is very interesting and very unique. Dash, to my knowledge, is the only coin that is doing that. And just a couple of days ago, the Dash community published a blog or a paper how they would like to build the road forward for Dash, and they will heavily also rely on these Dash master node network.
Okay.
So I think this is very interesting.
See, since you entered this domain in early 2012, so at that time the total share of Bitcoin in total cryptocurrency market space was around 95%. So had you ever imagined that there would come a time when Bitcoin share would come down to roughly around 40%?
Oh, that's really tough to say or hard to say. My opinion always has been that there is a certain network effect and first mover advantage, which Bitcoin has, and I always said to friends, if there is a coin which is just a little bit better than Bitcoin, it will never get up to the same level as Bitcoin. So let's take, for example, Litecoin. You can argue that Litecoin is in fact better than Bitcoin because it has a shorter block time. The block time of Bitcoin is 600 seconds. Litecoin is a quarter of that, so 150 seconds. So you could argue in some way, okay, Litecoin is in some way, in a very small, nuanced way, is superior to Bitcoin. However, everyone uses Bitcoin, right? Because of the network effect. So if there is like 5 of my friends use Bitcoin, only one of them uses Litecoin, I have way more points to interact with if I use Bitcoin myself. So if there would have been ever a coin which can compete with Bitcoin, it must have been not just a little bit better, but it must be, it must be truly superior in a number of ways. And I think now 2 things came together. On the one hand, Ethereum, for example, has a number of features. It has this very easy to use programming language. It pushes technology and implementations forward in a completely, so the whole way the development works is completely different compared to Bitcoin. So while Bitcoin is extremely conservative, the Ethereum developers push technology forward very fast, even at the risk of sometimes breaking a few things. So it's a different philosophy behind that. So there is conceptually they are different. The technology behind Ethereum is developing in a faster way compared to Bitcoin. And the other thing is that Bitcoin is kind of in a phase of stagnation, where improvements in the code, not only because the dev team is conservative, but also because there is this ongoing debate, block size debate, we just talked about it, kind of leads to a situation where improvements cannot, like segregated witnesses, cannot get quickly to the code base. So there is also a lot of frustration and anger in the community. So I think it's kind of these 2 things. On the one hand, there is this technological superior system, which Ethereum is. Easier to program, for example, way easier. You can kind of build arbitrary or almost arbitrary new coins on top of it. And on the other side, Bitcoin is a bit in trouble, which means that the market has shifted to a view that Bitcoin might not be the one currency, cryptocurrency, which will lead in the next 10 years. And at Genesis Mining, just to add that we have always been of the opinion that the cryptocurrency world will be diversified. So we always hold up the view that there will be several cryptocurrencies and not only one. I mean, there is these people that call themselves Bitcoin maximalists that believe there have their argument is normally like there will only be one blockchain because it's hard to maintain and has maximum security, and why repeat that? But we always believe there is room for many cryptocurrencies like Zcash, which has a better anonymity compared to Bitcoin, Dash, which tries out, we talked about that, this masternode structure, Ethereum, which has the smart contracts and builds a lot of things on top of that. So I think we will see, let's say, like a dozen or so cryptocurrencies like these storage coins, Sia coin, for example, which make sense and which are useful.
Okay. So, Marco, when generally people say mining, they generally relate mining with equivalent to gold mining. But the fact of the matter is, as I have also mentioned it in my book, that miners are the accountant of cryptocurrency network.
Yes.
Their fundamental job is basically verifying the transactions. So they are the auditors of a machine age.
Yes.
So don't you think that this particular role is actually a very, very serious shift from manual world of auditing?
Whether the mining, the automated auditing is very different from what humans do, or what is the question?
Let me rephrase the question. See, if we assume that there are 5 billion people in this world and they conduct 10 transactions a day, so there are 50 billion transactions a day in this world. And a lot of those transactions undergo a manual auditing process. Now, if that part of transactional world actually shift from manual auditing to machine-based auditing through mining, through cryptocurrencies, don't you think that world is actually undergoing a very serious shift from manual auditing to machine-based auditing?
Yes, of course there is. But on the other hand, also, I mean, right now as the world is, I mean, banks, they will not manually audit all these transactions. Yeah, most of them are already audited by machines. Yeah, if I buy a coffee at Starbucks, for example, there is not a human verifying and checking this transaction. Most of these things are done anyway with help of machine learning and so on, whether the transaction makes sense and so on. So I think there is only very few cases where a person will be involved even in the banking age as of today. Nevertheless, Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies, they will do everything automated in a way which is an advantage. On the other hand, if you look at the exchanges, at the perspective from exchanges, they are regulated, so they will have to do KYC, AML, and on their point, they will have to reintroduce manual checking. So if I go to an exchange and say, hey guys, send me 10,000 Bitcoins from my account, you can imagine some human person will look over that and ask me questions, right? Where did these Bitcoin come from? So the regulation will enforce us, even if Bitcoin itself or the other cryptocurrencies themselves, they run fully automatically 24/7. At some point in time, namely the exchanges, there will be a manual process.
Okay.
Hello, I am Enigma, the world's largest mining facility for Ethereum. Ethereum is the first world computer. It is a decentralized network that can be used by anyone and is capable of running applications with no possibility of downtime, censorship, or fraud. These applications, called smart contracts, require a certain kind of fuel to run them. The network's own native currency, the Ether. It is a form of payment made by the users of the platform to the machines to execute all requested operations. Anyone can earn Ether and help secure the network by volunteering processing power to the network. This process is called mining. All around the world, people are using their computers at home to be a part of this collective effort. Our Enigma farm is a computation cluster built for exactly this venture. If you are as fascinated by the Ethereum project as we are and want to participate, head over to our website and become a part of the project.
Okay, fair enough. So, can you share about other plans of Genesis Mining across multiple countries?
Genesis Mining actually is working on practically all countries all over the world. So you can buy hash rate and rent computational hardware for doing mining actually from everywhere. We have a big focus now on India and Indonesia. So we'll try to work with companies, more companies, and in particular in India. As there's many startups, interesting things happening. The legal framework in India seems to develop in a very positive direction. The Indian market is very big, and there's lots of smart people in India that have a good understanding of computer science. So the certain, and the Indian people have a very good understanding of gold. Historically, India
Yes.
has been one of the biggest buyers of gold. So the Indian market is absolutely of interest for us. On the other hand, we do not only want to do mining in the future, so we have some other plans for providing other services, also to bring together closer the fiat world and the cryptocurrency world, so that people can easier switch between the two worlds. So it won't be an exchange, but something which makes kind of gives you your kind of bank account or your wallet combined with the crypto and fiat.
So should I interpret it like that you want to have some sort of understanding with Bitcoin exchanges of India?
Yes, we are talking to all kind of exchanges, also with the Indian exchanges, and they're doing a great job, by the way, to introduce Bitcoin to new people. We are not going to build up another exchange. Other people can do that in a much better way. But nevertheless, there is no good service right now which allows you to have a bank account in the traditional way and a cryptocurrency wallet. So you cannot, we have seen people that go to big German banks or big American banks and tell them, hey, we would like to use Bitcoin, we want to buy Bitcoin. How can I do it? And the banks say like, what is it? How can we do it? So the banks traditionally move very, very slowly. The good thing about us fintech companies is that we can move in a much faster way. We already have a very good understanding of the cryptocurrency side. We would also kind of like to integrate more of the fiat world. So to put these two things together, so it becomes really, really easy and convenient for the people that are not so much used to the cryptocurrency world to have a smooth transition from the one to the other side.
Okay, so that would be very interesting, and it will lead to a lot of acceptance of cryptocurrencies across multiple markets.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's harder to do than mining in the sense it requires additional licenses. So for mining, it's kind of we rent computer services, so it's relatively easy. But as soon as you go into the fiat world, you need the proper licenses, and then, as you also know from India, there is certain restrictions on how much money you can convert and these kind of things. So things become a little bit more complicated, regulated, and you have to follow with different restrictions in different countries, which is a bit harder than just doing mining.
Okay, Marco, let me raise a question which has been quite controversial, particularly in Indian scenario. Whenever we say Bitcoin mining or altcoin mining, if there are some ethical players, simultaneously a lot of unethical players jump into the market and they distort the market like anything. Recently, Zeppe on its blog published around a dozen names where they mentioned that they are not the right kind of players and Zeppe has nothing to do with them. So whenever such unethical players enter the market, they distort public perception of what is cryptocurrency mining. So what is your stand on that, and how Genesis Mining maintains its credibility across the world?
Yeah, there has been it's a very good question. There has been from the very beginning. I mean, I entered Bitcoin in, I think, beginning of 2012. And from that day on, there have been people that are sometimes in gray areas, sometimes in completely illegal ways, trying to scam people. Sometimes it's kind of a business concept which is extremely expensive, but they at least do something with the money. But sometimes it's an outright scam. I think there has been this guy, what was one of the first scams was this, I think it was called Bitcoin Investment Trust or so. It was really like in 2012 or beginning of 2013, I don't know. And he just said, yeah, I have an investment opportunity here. I cannot tell you what it is, but you get 7% return on your Bitcoins. And I mean, it raises all kind of red flags. The guy was, the name of the guy was not known. He has a business concept which he was not going to share. And he was giving extremely high yields on an investment, like 7% per month or so. I think 7% per month, so completely unrealistic. Nevertheless, I think he received like tens of thousands of Bitcoins at that point in time from people that were, well, let's face it, they were greedy. They wanted more. And many of them lost their money because, these scammers, they don't pay you back, or they only pay back the first people that arrive, and after that they don't. So, and then a bit later, people thought about, okay, this is, if I want to scam someone and I do not even can explain to them where the money stems from, that might be difficult. So many of them started to say, oh, we are doing mining, and mining is very profitable, and then use that as an excuse to get money. And one of these famous examples from people that really never did much mining was gold miners. Gold miners had a reputation because they were selling hardware in the beginning, but then they said like, oh yeah, we're doing script mining, it's highly profitable, and da-da-da-da-da. And they invented their own coin and whatever, but they never really did large-scale mining. So, but it's kind of a good excuse for scammers to say we are mining to justify where their profits come from. We at Genesis Mining, we try to publish pictures. All of us are very well known. We post our LinkedIn profiles. We are going to conferences. We are not trying to hide our identities. I'm here in a call with you. We bring sometimes people. Recently, we brought some of our clients to our mining farm, so they can really take pictures and verify that these mining hardware really is there. Also, there is a number of things if you are out there in this cryptocurrency world, and the important thing is, for all cryptocurrencies, these transactions are not reversible. So whenever you send money to someone else, you have to be sure that you know who the money, what the money is for, and who the receiver is. So if people in mining or whatever business guarantee you a certain profit, it's almost certainly a scam. We never promise anyone any profit. It's not possible. No one can do that. Anytime you can imagine you can make a profit, or there's a high profit expectation, this always means there's also high risk involved. And no one in this world can guarantee you something, because if it's a free profit, he would use it for himself. Okay. So it's always a risky game. And as I said, there were like 3 red flags. One is if the persons behind the company are not known. The second thing is if they guarantee you certain profits. And the third thing is if they have a business model which doesn't make sense.
Okay. So one more thing regarding this. See, there are some computer science people here in India who think that mining is possible, at least if not Bitcoin mining, Ether mining is possible, or Dash mining is possible. But I've seen Bitcoin mining network hash rate increasing from terahash to petahash to exahash, and now it stands up around 5.5 exahash.
Yes.
So can you share the kind of complexity that is involved in mining industry, which you people are actually mastering day by day?
You mean in the mining setup, in the mining industry to build all these farms?
Yeah.
There is different. It sounds so simple. It sounds in the beginning. It sounds so simple. You just buy the machine, plug it in, and you start mining. Well, that's not how it is. In theory, if you do it at home, maybe it is the way. But there is in the reality, if you do large-scale mining, there are a number of problems. So first of all, you need to buy the hardware. And if you go to any hardware company or GPU company or so and tell them, hey, I want to buy 50,000 GPUs, it's sometimes not that easy. It's not like they have 50,000 GPUs in their stock. Right now, for example, GPUs are really difficult to get, the second thing is you need to have a facility with enough electricity. The whole build out takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of resources. You need to take care of the cooling. Then there is the transportation. Yeah, so recently we had to hire a whole 747 machine, a Boeing 747, to transport all this equipment from the manufacturing company to one of our farms. And then there comes logistical nightmare. So you do not exactly know when the production finishes, but you need to book this Boeing 747 in advance, 2 weeks in advance, and it will only be there for that specific amount. It will not wait for a day or so, because obviously this is an expensive airplane, so it has other things to do. So you really have to finish until then. Then there can be interruptions and problems in the production process. Certain ships can be out and all of that. In addition to that, you have certain restrictions and problems in certain countries to import equipment. Yeah? So for example, in Argentina, you have a 70% import tax. No one can do a mining business with a 70% import tax. There is sometimes your hardware gets stuck in customs because the customs does not know what it is. They have questions, and sometimes it's bureaucracy and transportation can be a nightmare. Then, of course, plugging in all these machines, it takes a lot of time. And then, yeah, you have to kind of configure the hardware. You have to maintain it. For example, GPUs, you have to imagine it's kind of not like a home computer, but these GPUs and the software on them is kind of optimized. It's so close at the maximum that it's very sensitive to disruptions. So if something small happens or so, or sometimes out of the blue, these cards or these whole mining rigs, they just crash. You have to have, or we have written custom software which we call Genesis Hive, which checks these mining farms. You can have just another example. For example, we had in Iceland, we have a warehouse, and normally this warehouse, the cold air comes from both sides. Now, if there is wind coming from, a lot of wind in Iceland coming from the one side, this side of the farm will get a lot of cold air. But on the other side of the warehouse, the pressure will be low because of the wind, which means kind of the intake of cold air is reduced. So the one side of your mining farm will be very cool and will run very smoothly, and the other side will be getting extremely hot. And then you need to have software which detect what's going on to reduce the frequency and the setup and the energy consumption on the one side of the warehouse, and so on. It's all kind of technical, logistical, and administrative challenges we face every day.
So that's great to hear, because these kind of complexities are really unique.
It is, yeah, it is. But it's also great. I mean, we are in constant talks to all big manufacturers, try to decide on the best possible next generation and best possible hardware we can buy. Sometimes we can even kind of get customized versions which fit better our needs and our setup because we buy in huge quantities. So it's very interesting.
So Marco, the kind of intricate and complex challenges that you are mentioning, sometimes I feel that next Bond movie, the major actor would be some sort of a Bitcoin miner.
I don't think so. Yeah. We have a lot of action, but not that kind of action.
but you have a lot of stories to tell.
Oh yes, yeah. We can fill a whole evening with stories what happened. I mean, and this is kind of probably not just related to miners. It's probably to everyone who has been in this cryptocurrency world. In the last 3-4 years, so many things have changed and happened, and yeah, it's a crazy roller coaster all the time, which is exciting. But you always have to, every day you have to adapt, and to change your plans accordingly. So we had recently we had one person who was working with us, and his task was to get a certain amount of chips for us, which he was working on. And from one day to the other, we found a better solution. And we had to tell him, hey, you have to stop. We don't need that anymore. We have to do it this way. And he was completely shocked because he comes from a traditional business world where you tell him something and he has like 4 weeks to execute that. And we said, no, on the next day we had completely changed our plans. And he was completely, no, you can't do that. It's for them, or they sometimes tell us, we need 2 weeks or we need 2 months for something. We say like 2 months is like 2 years for us. We don't have 2 months. We need a quick solution now. It's the clock in cryptocurrency world ticks at a much faster pace. So
Excellent.
You have to move extremely fast.
Okay, Ashwin Richard was telling me that you people are also planning to launch some sort of educational platform or educational wing of Genesis Mining. Can you share some details?
Yes, that's Ashwin is the coordinator for the Indian Asian market for Genesis Mining, and he's absolutely right. What we have seen in the last 3 years in Genesis Mining is that at the beginning, people that came to us, they were expert with cryptocurrencies. We would not have to explain to them how they set up a wallet, how they do a Bitcoin transaction, or all of these things. But we have discovered over time there's now millions of people coming into the cryptocurrency world, that more and more of these people, they do not pay, let's say they don't pay us with cryptocurrency anymore, but they prefer paying with credit cards to use our services. And from the kind of tickets we get in our customer service, we also see, the knowledge of these newcomers. Obviously, it's completely understandable. If you're new to this world, there's a lot of things you need to learn and you need to understand. So having this in mind, that there is more and more people entering the wonderful cryptocurrency world, we thought it's a good idea to help with education. So to answer a simple question, how to do a Bitcoin transaction, how does Bitcoin work, what is the purpose? As you said, Sunil, people think about Bitcoin mining as some kind of gold mining, which is way more sexy to think about than auditing something. If you would call, yes, we are machine auditor, and you can buy auditing services, our business would probably be like 5% of what it is now. So, but the truth is, what miners, and you correctly said that what miners are there for is really auditing the transaction and to ensure that the system is working, the accounting and auditing part. So mining is a direct result of the decentralization property of Bitcoin. And these kind of things we would like to explain to people what mining really is and how all of that works. And there is like dozens and hundreds of questions we would like to answer. So what we are going to do is writing text and also videos that explain, hopefully soon also then in different languages, that explain the basic concepts of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular.
Okay, so Marco, in last 5 years, so many things have happened which could not have been imagined. Okay.
True. Yes.
So since we are now in the last part of our dialogue session, so can I ask you some questions which might look fictitious, but they do make a sense. You have to answer yes or no with your own interpretation. Can I ask?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. In next 5 years, do you think some player like WhatsApp or Facebook coming out with Bitcoin wallet?
Yes. Do you want to have a reason as well?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I think the scalability issues we face right now, we will kind of solve them. As Andreas Antonopoulos once put it, scalability is something we constantly have to work on.
Moving
And I
target.
think exactly, it's a moving target. But I'm very optimistic with what is happening now with segregated witness, with possible block size increase, but also with other cryptocurrencies. Dash has a very ambitious plan forward, Ethereum, and so on, Lightning Network, Raid Network. So there is a number of things which will help us to kind of scale with the number of people. And I would guess we are now around, like, people around the world, 10 million or so people using cryptocurrencies. And if we are around at 50 million to 100 million, which will certainly happen in the next 5 years, no one can ignore this group of users of 100 million people. That's impossible. So cryptocurrencies will be established as the de facto currency of the internet, and all internet-related companies like Google, Facebook, WhatsApp will have to implement them in some or the other way.
Great. So next question. Do you think in next 5 years, any government, any big government like China, Canada, US, Japan, or any other, or Canada, might issue a central bank denominated cryptocurrency like Fed coin or something like that in next 5 years?
I like the term centralized cryptocurrency because for me it's a contradiction in itself. So if it's centralized, for me it's not a cryptocurrency. The most important property, and I always stress it on every talk, the most important property which makes a difference between Bitcoin and all the other stuff, and between cryptocurrencies and fiat money, is that it's not centrally regulated. It's not so much a digital part. Digital is boring. The important thing and the important unique feature of Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies is that it's decentralized. So having a decentralized cryptocurrency which is owned by a central bank doesn't work. It just kind of that's kind of the unique selling point of Bitcoin. So yes, they will try that, but I think people will not fall for that. I mean, money is an important, or printing money is an important power of the state. So they will kind of try to defend that this right to print their own money. But more and more people will realize that the cryptocurrency world and the decentralized cryptocurrencies are much better store of value in the long term. And why should they go for national fiat currencies which can be inflated at any amount by a central institution if they can have something like Bitcoin? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so one more question, but that won't be as fictitious as other two questions were. See, at present, we have roughly 3 billion smartphone users across the world. And we expect to have more than 5 billion smartphone users in next 5 to 7 years. Don't you think if 5 billion smartphone users start interacting with cryptocurrencies, it will lead to some serious political change in the structure of nation state or in the structure of monetary sovereignty and all in any related sector? Do you think we are going to witness some serious political redesign in next 5 years?
Maybe not in the next 5 years, but you're absolutely right. Number of smartphones is increasing. So it's kind of, if you have a look at these Maslow desirable, how's it called, pyramid. So I think smartphone is very high actually on this list there. So people will, even if they have low income, they would like to buy a device which allows them to communicate with others. And smartphones can be produced very cheap these days, so most people will be able, hopefully, to afford that. And in addition to that, most of these people that are now buying smartphones, they are either underbanked or don't have a bank access at all. So they are cut off from the traditional financial system. They can't get easily a microloan or whatever. They cannot easily transfer money between each other. There are sometimes alternatives, like in Africa, this M-Pesa system, but it charges very high fees and you rely on one company and so on. So cryptocurrencies for them is a natural way to escape their financial restrictions they have, to interact financially with other people, to send some money to their families, which is, let's say, just a city away or so. Yeah. So it absolutely makes sense for them. And as we discussed on the previous question, central banks will gradually lose control over the monetary supply, because people will find that cryptocurrencies are much better store of value and gives them kind of independent access. And it's a sort of global form of money, which doesn't stop at country boundaries, which is in a globalized world, well, it perfectly makes sense. Certainly this will have some economic and political changes, yes. But there is more to come. I mean, it's not only about cryptocurrencies at that point. There is also some revolutionary things going on in machine learning, and this will, I think, at least over 10 years by far have a greater impact, maybe even. I think there are two things. I mean, blockchain and machine learning will over the next 10 years completely change the system how it is now, yes.
So Marco, I think I have really enjoyed this talk, and I have rather taken more time. But in the end, would you like to share some message from Genesis Mining with our audience?
Yes, absolutely. So first, let me say I very much enjoyed the interview and your well thought out questions. Yeah, so that was very interesting for me. And for our clients and potential clients and everyone in the Indian market, please keep up the great work. I've been now to India 2 times. I really enjoyed talking to everyone there. The community in India is moving forward very fast. I think like 3 years ago, almost no one in India knew what cryptocurrencies is, but now the speed and the excitement is unbelievable. So there have been hundreds of people at the conferences and so on. There is a lot of very smart people that have business idea, a number of exchanges, and yes, I wish the Indian cryptocurrency community all the best, and I think that it will be an important part of the global cryptocurrency movement.
Nice, Marco. So it's great talking to you, and we shall.
Thank you, Sunil.
And we shall keep talking again and again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Same to you.
Thank you, Sunil. Bye-bye.
Bye.